this is by far one of my biggest concerns with the carnivore diet.
That's very important to understand, because when you say something dogmatic, and I love Anthony Chafee, he's a good friend of mine, but I think when you say something like that, now you've kind of created disordered eating.
Hey, Lillie, I watched Dr. Berry's video and he said, if your ferritin's high, don't even worry about it. Do you think that there is such a thing of ferritin being too high?
Yes, and I didn't say don't even worry about it. That's definitely not what I said. If it's super high, then you need to talk to your doctor and get some more testing.
I do not like this carnivore thing. It's leading to all these different health issues. They start losing their hair, having less energy as a whole. Their hormones are getting out of balance now. Their thyroid function's going down.
And it leads to problems unless you've got somebody like you or our coaches teasing that out and saying, hey, let's talk about that. Let's think about that.
There are 3 major concerns I've seen with the carnivore diet over the years. Now, if you're new to the channel, my name's Lillie. I'm a certified nutrition health coach, and I've been eating a very carnivore-ish, animal-based, meat-heavy diet for the last 4 years, and I work with clients one-on-one. I look at a lot of blood work, and I really wanted Dr. Berry's opinion on these 3 topics, as I feel like they're just not talked about enough. Now, that said, nothing in this video is meant to be taken as medical advice, and what I'm about to say right here should be fact-checked. I can already see the comments coming in where people are like, that's not true, in which case, please do more research, do more digging, and fact check me. But one of the concerns that I've seen pop up over the years looking at some lab work with other clients, with myself, is elevated ferritin. Now, ferritin is the storage form of iron, red meat being high in iron, and when people are eating copious amounts of red meat and iron, the iron can be stored as ferritin. Now, the reason why this matters and the reason why I think people should pay more attention to this is because, now this is where we're gonna fact check me, but I like to think of iron as rust. Like, think of iron as rusting on a bicycle. When we have rust on a bicycle, the gears are harder to turn, the bike doesn't work as great. And similarly, I believe if we have too much iron in the blood, this can result to causing more rusting, quote, quote. It could lead to more atherosclerosis, damaging arteries, cells, and even some organs. Too much iron could impact the pancreas and impact the pancreas's ability to bring down insulin levels. Therefore, if there are people who are having 0 sugar, they could still get diabetes from having too much iron, too much ferritin in the body. Now, I don't want people to think, oh my gosh, what? So now I can't eat red meat? Heck no, I'm not saying that whatsoever. I eat red meat every single day. And specifically for women, I'm actually less concerned about the women having like crazy high iron, as women who are menstruating are giving blood each month, and women who are not menstruating, in my experience, don't eat enough meat or eat enough red meat to even cause themselves this kind of thought in their mind. In my experience, older women tend to eat very little. Not that I want this. I don't promote that, and I want them to eat more, but because most tend to eat so little, they usually don't run into problems by having too much iron or ferritin, at least in the lab work that I've seen. Now, that said, men. It's usually the men who I notice these chronically elevated ferritin levels, and not in all men. And again, this doesn't mean to not eat red meat. It just means this is something that I would pay attention to and monitor. A concern that's come up a lot with carnivore blood work, or even people who are just eating a lot of red meat, is having high ferritin levels. For my ferritin, it was right above the normal range. So I'm not super concerned with my ferritin, but my husband's was definitely out of the reference range. Like, he was pretty high.
See up here, your ferritin levels, which is your storage form of iron, were super elevated. 400 is obviously the upper range. You were at 422, but even if we're talking about optimal, usually for guys, it's below 100. And excess ferritin is going to cause higher oxidative stress in the body, which can make you more predisposed to having things like insulin resistance, cardiovascular issues, cardiovascular inflammation, and of course, liver issues, because a lot of the ferritin does get stored in the liver.
Yet, I had a client who his was double my husband's ferritin. His was like so sky high. And I had told him, you may want to consider donating blood or rotating instead of having so much red meat. Some days swap for more chicken, pork, salmon, seafood. And he then went and looked up online one of your YouTube videos where you're talking about ferritin levels. And he said to me, hey, Lillie, I watched Dr. Berry's video, and he said, if your ferritin's high, don't even worry about it. And I was like, I don't know if Dr. Berry believes that the more ferritin, the better. And so I told him I was going to ask you this question, which is, do you think that there is such a thing of ferritin being too high?
Yes, and I didn't say don't even worry about it. That's definitely not what I said. What I said is that some people are just going to have a little bit higher ferritin than other people, given the same situation. So there is a range of normal. There's not just a normal number, number one. Number two, for many people, as their metabolism heals, they'll have ferritin fluctuations for a few months. And so my standard advice is, if your ferritin's high, talk to your doctor about it. Maybe get some additional testing for iron and other things. Maybe get tested for hemochromatosis, genetic issues, because some people have that. And then recheck your ferritin every 3 months. And for the vast majority of people, it comes back down towards normal, and it's nothing to worry about. Now, here's something this is kind of in the doctor realm, but people need to understand, or at least be aware of this, that all of the lab normal ranges that a patient considers those set in stone. They don't know where they come from. They're not, honey. Trust me, they're not set in stone, okay? In many cases, they took 100 random people and just checked their whatever level and said, okay, here's 2 standard deviations. That's normal range. That's literally how they did it. All those people were bread eaters. They were all eating a high-carb diet. They were all probably had hyperinsulinemia, if not high blood sugar, right? So these normal ranges have been set on unhealthy people. And so what I've talked with Bickman and Chafee and Baker about this multiple times, I think eventually when we've got a large enough sample size, when we've got 50 million people eating meat-centric, meat-heavy, carnivore, ketovore, or meat-heavy keto diets, we're going to have to do some of our own research and say, okay, the actual normal range for somebody eating a proper human diet for this, that, or the other is actually this. A great example of this is I see some people, when they're eating lots of red meat and they love liver, their B12 levels will be way above normal. And they're like, oh my God, my doctor said to cut back on red meat. And I'm like, wait, did your doctor tell you that vitamin B12 level was high? Yes. Did they tell you it was dangerous? Well, they implied that. Are you taking a B12 supplement? In many cases, they're like, well, yeah, I checked, I am. Well, then stop that. You don't need that if you're eating red meat, right? But then in many cases, they're like, no, I'm not. And my B12 is 2,000 or something. I predict that we're going to have to do new research when we've got millions of people eating a proper human diet, because I do not ever think it's unhealthy to have a B12 level that's too high just from eating meat. I don't think it's possible to make yourself unhealthy B12 wise by eating meat. That's just not possible. Okay. It doesn't make any physiological sense. And so I think we're going to have to go back and look at the normal ranges for many of these labs when we're talking about a population of people eating a proper human diet, which is sugar-free, grain-free, vegetable oil seed, ultra-processed crap-free. You're going to have to set some new ranges. And Kim Howerton and I, we've already kind of started doing that in our book, Common Sense Labs, that we wrote. We're like, yeah, they say this is normal, but really this is kind of optimal. And so then also just giving people the tests that they actually should ask their doctor for, because many doctors don't know even what tests to order to measure your true metabolic health. So, but I think the ferritin thing, I think we've got way more research to do on it. If your ferritin's a little high, I don't think that's an oh my God moment. If it's super high, then you need to talk to your doctor and get some more testing, because you may have a genetic issue that most people don't have. And if you do, you need to be aware of that. And I think giving blood, that's great advice until you get to the bottom of it, especially if your hemoglobin and your hematocrit are starting to get high, above normal. Why not? Basically, eating meat is giving you the opportunity to help improve the health of hundreds of people by donating blood. Why not do that while we continue to read and research and continue to look at these lab reference ranges? It's not going to hurt you to give blood. That may, in fact, be why women on average live longer than men, because they give blood every month for decades, right? And so maybe men need to give blood too. Maybe we used to give blood during the hunt or during battle, and we don't really give blood that often anymore. Who knows? But I think there's a lot of fear mongering out there about, oh my God, you're so-and-so level. But then at the same time, there's too many people ignoring levels that after a certain point probably need to be given more attention.
I never experienced any major issues eating a carnivore or low carb diet until about the year mark. Ironically, that's when all of a sudden I started having crazy cramping in the gym and my eyes started twitching like nutsos. I would be going to the gym or to the grocery store and my eye would be twitching, and I felt so embarrassed talking to people because they're probably like, what's wrong with your eye? It's twitching like crazy. And something that really helped me was having more electrolytes. Now, the brand that I use is called Element Electrolytes, and these electrolytes also helped my family get off of soda. They were big soda drinkers, and they instead swapped for having more of these electrolytes, and it still has that sweet taste, but it doesn't have any of those artificial ingredients or artificial flavors. And in fact, these electrolytes provide the body with more sodium, magnesium, potassium, which can help with, yes, eye twitching, muscle cramping, headaches, fatigue, heart palpitations. There's many uses for electrolytes, as the body needs these electrolytes to manage its heart health and nerve function. If you'd like to check out Element Electrolytes, you'll find a link in the video description where you can get 8 free additional packets with any order, or you can use the URL drinkelement.com/LillieKane to get those 8 free packets. They also offer a money-back guarantee, so if you try it and you don't like it, you can get your money back. When you say to eat as much meat as you want, eat until you're comfortably full, I love that advice because it's very simple and it starts training people to listen to their body more than worrying about hitting a certain calorie number. However, I have seen in my experience a lot of people, well, I would say the smallest percentage of people, when they're told to eat as much as they want, they overeat, but that's a very small percentage of people. Rather, I find there's a good percentage of people who they actually tend to undereat, especially my women. A lot of times they're like, I had a burger and an egg, I ate until I was full and I was stuffed and I didn't need to eat anything else. And my fear with that is that if people chronically undereat, now they start losing hair or menstrual cycle, having less energy as a whole. They're feeling cold all the time. Their hormones are getting out of balance now. Their thyroid function's going down. The men are having less testosterone. And they're like, oh my gosh, I do not like this carnivore thing. It's leading to all these different health issues. When really, I would argue it's that they're just not eating enough food, because whether you're eating a vegan diet, a carnivore diet, a standard American diet, anytime we're in a chronically deficited state, even if we're eating really good nutrient-dense foods, if we're not eating enough, now the body starts down-regulating and people can run into issues. And so I've had to tell people, hey, the minimum I need you to eat is 4 eggs and a pound of meat. I don't care if that meat is beef, chicken, lamb, pork, shrimp, salmon, oysters, whatever you got to do, eat a pound of meat, 4 eggs a day, because if I don't even get them to hit that minimum, then, they're just going to eat so little.
Yeah. And I think for a subset of people, that's absolutely helpful to them, because I have seen this, and it's almost always women. You may have noticed this as well. Men, if you tell them to eat meat as much as you want, eat into your stuff, they're gonna throw down some meat. But it's like the protein in the fat in meat is somehow very satiating for a subset of women. Not all women, but some women. They're like, if I eat an egg and a burger patty, I'm stuffed for the next 2 days. Yeah, now, I've seen that, and it's not everybody, but this is true. Some people do that. Now let's even dig deeper. What if this woman is severely obese? Do I, as a doctor, care if she's just eating an egg and a burger patty a day? I don't initially, and here's why. Because she's immediately going to be in deep ketosis, which means she's going to be breaking down and metabolizing all that stored fat, right, that she's trying to get rid of. So it's almost like she ate a 1/4 cup of beef tallow, because of all of her own fat that she's going to auto digest and metabolize, right? But that fat that she's got stored on her body, it doesn't just float in midair magically. It's held together with connective tissue. And as she and that's made of amino acids, proteins, collagen, right? As she metabolizes the fat, she's also going to be breaking down that collagen and reutilizing that. So it's almost like she's eating an extra couple of burger patties a day with some beef tallow poured on top or some butter from all of the fat and the connective tissue that she's metabolizing and getting rid of on her own body. So at least for a while, I'm happy if she's like, dude, I'm telling you, if I eat an egg and a burger patty, it's not like I'm saying I'm not portion controlling, because I'm literally stuffed to the gills. I don't want anything for the rest of the day. For weeks until her body fat percentage gets down to a certain level, I think that's totally safe and fine. Does that make sense? But when her body fat percentage gets to a certain point, what I see happen very often is that her appetite picks up. And she's like, no, one egg and one burger patty is not enough for me anymore. Now I'm wanting 2 of each or 3 of each. And I'm like, good, listen to that. That's why I've already kind of pre-programmed her to eat to your stuff, because that's going to change as her body fat percentage comes down. And so for the vast majority of women, when they've lost enough fat, all of a sudden that appetite picks up and they're like, yeah, that's not enough. But I do remember he said eating to your stuff, and I'm no longer stuffed. So I'm going to start eating more eggs and burger patties or whatever until I'm comfortably stuffed. And so I think there's almost a fail-safe built into almost everybody's metabolism. Now, then you start dealing with people who had a previous eating disorder, or they had a previous militant mother who was like, you cannot eat that much food, blah, 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 blah. Or you need to finish your plate. I don't care. You overeat. And that's why I think it's great to have people like you who are like, hey, let's talk more about this. And so when I'm kind of throwing out these global guidelines, it's because I know that I've got people like you out there to kind of tease through this psychology and this sociology and this wiring that's sometimes happened before we were even old enough to make decisions, right? When we were 3 and 4 years old, we had this thing, whatever it was, that was moving our thoughts and beliefs about food in this unhealthy direction, because a lot of this, our parents, they meant well, but they put very bad programming in our meat computer, and it leads to problems unless you've got somebody like you or our coaches teasing that out and saying, hey, let's talk about that. Let's think about that.
And being in the carnivore space, I'm sure you've heard plants have toxins and plants are trying to kill you. And while I believe that this message has helped a tremendous amount of people, unfortunately, at the same time, phrases like these have caused people a lot of harm. And I know that there's a way to communicate this same message without hurting as many people along the way, because I've had a lot of one-on-one clients come to me with more food fear, anxiousness, and just stress around eating, saying, these doctors and people online have made me afraid that if I eat a plant, then I'm literally hurting myself. And so this is by far one of my biggest concerns with the carnivore diet. Mainly the messaging is that it used to be eat meat and be happy. And now it's eat meat or die because plants are trying to kill you.
Yeah. So that's not true. Let me just say that. That's not true. Plants are not trying to kill you. Most plants are not. Some are absolutely trying to kill you. And if you eat them, they will kill you. Absolutely. But it is true that all plants are trying to discourage other animals from eating their bodies and eating their seeds. That's absolutely true. Okay. Now that affects people differently. And so there's this thing called a normal distribution curve. And I know for some people, this is getting off in the weeds, but I think it's vital to understand this. Some people can eat 10 pounds of raw spinach a day, which is full of oxalates. Literally doesn't affect them in any negative way whatsoever, right? There are some people, if they eat more than a pound of raw spinach, they're going to have problems.
Yeah.
Okay. There are some people, if they eat a serving of even cooked spinach, it's going to cause gut issues or skin issues or some other kind of issue. There's a distribution curve of this. So spinach absolutely puts oxalates in its leaves for no other purpose than to discourage mammals from eating its leaves. This is the botanist will tell you this. They've actually bred spinach to not contain oxalates, and it doesn't hurt the spinach in any way. The spinach is not putting the oxalates in there for its benefit. It's putting the oxalates in the leaves to prevent cows from munching on too much spinach, or humans, or anybody. But some people, it does not affect them the same way as other people. There is a distribution curve. That's very important to understand, because when you say something dogmatic, and I love Anthony Chafee, he's a good friend of mine. I love him, and I understand exactly why he's saying what he's saying. But I think when you say something like that, if the wrong person hears that, now you've kind of created disordered eating. You've got this person who's now fearful of food and fearful of, like, oh my God, it's, it grew in the dirt, but I don't know. So that's why Misha and I are such great fans of experimentation. I think carnivore is the ultimate elimination diet, right? And so after 90 days of your carnivore, if you're like, yeah, but man, I freaking love spinach, then you can add back in the spinach. And if you're like, holy crap, I bloated like I was 4 months pregnant, and then I got diarrhea, and then my joints ached for 2 days. Aha, you're one of those people who needs to limit or avoid spinach. Now you know for sure for yourself. But to just say all plants are trying to kill you is dogmatic. And it's helpful to many people, because what Chafee's trying to do is dispel the magic that plants are the healthiest food. And so anytime you've got that kind of message, you got to do the diametrically opposed thing to kind of slap people and say, hey, no, a plant-based diet's not the healthiest diet for humans. That's stupid. Plants are literally putting chemicals, phytochemicals in their bodies to make you sick and uncomfortable if you eat them, which is true. But I think for people who are already susceptible to disordered eating, when you say something like that, if the wrong person hears that, that's going to cause problems down the road.
I bleeped out some of the words that Dr. Berry used to describe this phenomena, which I'll put right here because I'm pretty sure I'll get flagged on YouTube for using these phrases. But my best advice to not get down this path is when I'm working with clients, I'll say, okay, Steve, you're not going to eat the carnivore diet. You're not eating low carb. You're not eating keto. You're going to eat the Steve diet, which is a diet that helps you with your goals, makes you feel your best, because that same diet is probably not going to work for somebody else. And so Sarah, you're going to do the Sarah diet. Morgan, you're doing the Morgan diet, because I think that can free our minds from feeling like we have to eat in a specific way. I get often asked, can I have tea? And I say, well, Morgan, when you have tea, what kind are you drinking? Look at the ingredients. How does it make you feel? How much are you having? Is tea helping you reach your goal? Sarah asked about pickles. Okay, well, what kind of pickles are we talking about? Look at the ingredients. A lot of them have high fructose corn syrup or sugar added to the pickles. I know, it's so sad. Why can't we just get some pickles? But then if you have clean ingredient pickles and you like what you have and it doesn't bother you and it helps you reach your goal, great, have your pickles. But essentially, when I'm creating a meal plan for people, I'll first start with putting protein on the plate. Let's get protein here. Let's get some healthy fats. And after that, we can kind of mix and match in this other corner, more protein, more fats, or some other plant foods and things that help you reach your goals and make you feel your best. And I talked more about this idea and how to create a healthy meal plan in this video here. I hope you guys have a happy day, and I'll see you in the next one.